Captain John Richards strode into the dimly lit bar on planet Xylara, his eyes scanning the room. The atmosphere was thick with the hum of alien dialects and the scent of exotic brews. This was the Galactic Nexus, a popular haunt known for its diverse clientele from across the galaxy. As he approached the bar, his gaze settled on the bartender, a blue-skinned alien with humanoid features and sharp, observant eyes. "Good evening," John said, trying to sound casual as he took a seat. "I'll have whatever's popular tonight." Ilaria, the bartender, poured a glowing liquid into a tall glass and slid it across to him. "First time on Xylara?" she asked, her tone neutral but curious. "Is it that obvious?" John chuckled, taking a sip of the drink. It was sweet with a sharp, tangy aftertaste. "It is," Ilaria replied, a hint of a smile playing at her lips. "You carry yourself like someone not quite sure what to expect." John nodded, appreciating her insight. "I suppose I am here on important business, but tonight I'm just a man looking to understand more about this place." Ilaria leaned in slightly, intrigued. "And what business brings a human to Xylara, if not the usual trading and negotiations?" John decided to be partially honest. "Let's just say I'm here to ensure that certain parties see eye to eye," he replied, glancing around to make sure no one was paying too much attention. "A diplomat, then, or a peacemaker?" Ilaria guessed, wiping down the bar. "Something like that," John admitted, turning his attention back to her. "And what's it like, working here, seeing all these different species mingle?" Ilaria shrugged, her expression thoughtful. "It's enlightening. I see the best and worst of the cosmos from behind this bar, and sometimes it's a reminder of how varied life can be, even among one's own kind." Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion at the door. A group of rowdy patrons entered, their loud voices filling the space. Ilaria excused herself to attend to the new arrivals, leaving John to his thoughts. As he observed the interactions around him, he noted the way Ilaria managed the patrons with a calm authority, diffusing tensions and serving drinks without missing a beat. It was clear she was respected, perhaps even liked by her customers. John's mission on Xylara was delicate. With tensions high between the human colonies and the Xylarian Empire, his role was to broker a peace that would prevent another interstellar war. Watching Ilaria navigate the complexities of her role, he wondered if there were lessons he could learn from her on how to handle disparate factions with competing interests. After settling the newcomers, Ilaria returned to John. "It seems you're not the only one here with a mission," she commented, nodding towards the group. "Seems like it," John agreed, finishing his drink. "If you don't mind me asking, how do you keep peace in a place like this?" Ilaria paused, then said, "I find that most conflicts come from misunderstandings or from fear of the unknown. If you give people a chance to explain themselves, sometimes that's all it takes to ease the tension." "Sounds like you're a diplomat in your own right," John remarked with a smile. "Maybe in another life," Ilaria laughed softly. "For now, I'm just a bartender who listens and learns." John felt a sense of kinship with Ilaria. Both were peacekeepers in their own way, working to bridge gaps in understanding among diverse groups. As the night wore on, they shared more about their experiences and views on the galaxy, forming the beginnings of what John hoped would be a beneficial alliance. As he left the bar that night, John felt more prepared to face the challenges ahead. The insights from a simple conversation with an alien bartender had provided him a fresh perspective on his daunting task. In the tangled web of interstellar politics, perhaps it was these small, seemingly inconsequential interactions that held the key to lasting peace. Captain John Richards returned to the Galactic Nexus the following evening, eager to further his newfound acquaintance with Ilaria, the insightful bartender. As he approached the bar, the soft hum of conversation and the eclectic mix of alien music filled the air. Ilaria spotted him immediately and greeted him with a nod, her blue face lighting up with a warm, albeit cautious, smile. "Back again, Captain?" she queried as John took his usual seat at the bar. "I hope the atmosphere here hasn't scared you off." "Not at all," John replied, settling into the chair. "In fact, I find this place quite enlightening. Another one of those drinks from last night, please." "As you wish," Ilaria said, preparing his drink with skilled hands. She placed it in front of him and leaned forward slightly. "So, what brings you back? More cultural insights, or is there something else on your mind?" John took a sip, savoring the tangy sweetness. "A bit of both," he confessed. "I've been thinking about our conversation last night. You mentioned how varied life can be, even among one's own kind. I find that fascinating and somewhat relieving. Ilaria raised an eyebrow. Relieving? Yes, John continued. In my line of work, I often see the extremes: conflict, negotiation, alliances, betrayals. It's refreshing to hear that diversity isn't just a source of tension, but can also be a wellspring of harmony. Ilaria considered his words, then replied, Diversity does bring challenges, but it's the differences that make this place interesting. Each species, each individual brings a new perspective, a new solution. The bar was busier than the previous night, with a mix of species conversing quietly, their languages blending into a symphony of interstellar dialects. John noticed a group of Xylarians in one corner, their tall, slender forms huddled together in what seemed like a heated discussion. Tell me, Ilaria, John asked, how do you manage to keep peace among so many different species? It's all about understanding their needs and finding common ground, Ilaria explained. Sometimes it's simple, like how many prefer their drinks. Other times, it's about mediating disputes before they escalate. As if on cue, a minor scuffle broke out between two patrons, a human and a creature from a reptilian species. Ilaria excused herself and quickly intervened. John watched as she spoke calmly to both parties, her demeanor unflinching, yet respectful. Within moments, the tension dissolved, and the patrons returned to their seats, albeit sheepishly. Ilaria returned to John, a slight smirk on her face. Like that, she said. A little understanding goes a long way. John chuckled. Impressive. I must admit I could use some of that tact in my negotiations. Perhaps I could learn a thing or two from you. Perhaps you could. Ilaria agreed, her tone playful yet sincere. Each interaction teaches me something new about the creatures who walk into this bar. If you're open to it, each person you meet can teach you something valuable. The night progressed, and John took the opportunity to observe the interactions around him more closely, guided by Ilaria's insights. He began to understand the subtle dynamics at play, the give and take that seemed to underpin the apparent chaos of the bar. As the evening drew to a close, John felt a profound sense of progress, not just in his diplomatic mission, but in his understanding of the galaxy's diverse inhabitants. Ilaria, with her keen observations and wise words, had opened his eyes to the possibilities of learning from every encounter, no matter how trivial it might seem. Thank you, Ilaria, John said as he prepared to leave. For the drinks and the lessons. Any time, Captain, Ilaria responded with a knowing smile. Remember, the galaxy is vast, and its lessons are endless. Keep your mind and heart open, and you'll find what you're looking for. With a nod of appreciation, John left the bar, his mind buzzing with ideas and a renewed sense of purpose. He knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but equipped with new perspectives, he was more prepared than ever to face them. Captain John Richards entered the Galactic Nexus for the third consecutive night, his steps now familiar with the alien establishment's layout. The din of diverse languages filled the air, mingling with the aroma of exotic cuisines. At the bar, Ilaria greeted him with a knowing glance, her eyes reflecting a mix of respect and curiosity. Captain Richards, she called out as he approached, I was wondering if you'd make this a habit. John smiled, taking his usual seat. It seems I have, he replied, watching her expertly mix a drink. This place, and your company, are becoming indispensable to my stay on Zelara. Ilaria passed him his drink, her expression slightly amused. Glad to be of service. What's on the agenda tonight? More cultural exchange, or are there other winds blowing? John leaned in, lowering his voice. Actually, I've come to realize that this bar might be more than just a cultural hub. I suspect it's a nexus for information, possibly even espionage. Ilaria's demeanor remained unchanged, but her eyes narrowed slightly. Espionage, you say? That's a serious accusation, Captain. But you're not wrong. Many come here to trade more than just pleasantries. John took a sip of his drink, letting the flavors settle. I thought as much, and while I'm no spy, I could use some information. There are factions within the Xylarian leadership who might not favor the peace negotiations. Any insight you could provide would be invaluable. Ilaria paused, considering his request. Information is a delicate commodity, she finally said. What makes you think I'd share it with you? Because despite our differences, I believe we both prefer peace to war, John stated earnestly, and I like to think that our interactions have built some trust. Ilaria sighed, a slight smile breaking through her initial reserve. All right, Captain. I can't give you everything, but I can tell you this. There are indeed factions that view your peace treaty as a threat to their power. Be wary of the Vorar group. They're less interested in trade and more in maintaining their military edge. John nodded, absorbing the information. Thank you, Ilaria. Any knowledge of their movements or plans? They're cautious, but I hear whispers. They meet often, after hours, in the darker parts of the city. I can keep my ears open, but I'll need something in return. Name it, John said, his tone resolute. Protection. If word gets out that I'm helping you, it won't just be my business on the line. It'll be my life. John agreed without hesitation. You have my word. We'll protect you and your establishment. With a new alliance formed, they spent the rest of the evening plotting. Ilaria detailed the various species and groups that frequented her bar, providing John with a clearer picture of the political landscape. In return, John shared his strategic knowledge, offering insights into human diplomatic tactics and security measures. As the night grew late, the bar began to empty, leaving John and Ilaria in quiet contemplation of the steps they were about to take. They had ventured into a partnership that was risky, yet potentially rewarding, bridging their worlds in ways neither had anticipated. Ilaria, I'm not sure how this will end, John confessed as he prepared to leave, but I'm certain it's the right thing to do. Ilaria nodded, her face serious yet hopeful. In uncertain times, it's the brave choices that define us. Let's hope ours lead to peace. With a final nod, John left the bar, the weight of their shared secret binding them in a mutual quest. As he disappeared into the Xylarian night, he felt the isolation of his mission lessen. With Ilaria's help, he was not alone. Together, they might just alter the course of their worlds. As the dim lights of the galactic nexus cast long shadows over the patrons, Captain John Richards found himself returning not just for strategic discussions, but for the unexpected camaraderie he had found with Ilaria. Tonight, the bar buzzed quietly with the low murmur of various alien dialects blending into a symphony of discreet exchanges. John approached the bar where Ilaria was methodically arranging glasses, her movements precise and graceful. Evening, Ilaria, John greeted, taking his usual spot at the bar. Captain, Ilaria responded with a nod, her face lighting up with a hint of a smile. What's the plan tonight? More shadowy dealings or a moment's respite? A bit of both, John replied, accepting a glass of the now familiar tangy drink. But first, tell me something about yourself. We've spoken so much about politics and plots. I realize I know little about the person helping me navigate this labyrinth. Ilaria paused, her expression turning contemplative. Not much to tell that's of interest. I came to Xylara to start anew, away from the conflicts of my home world. This bar, these patrons, they're my second chance. Her openness surprised John, and he leaned in, intrigued. What happened on your home world, if you don't mind my asking? Ilaria poured another drink for a patron before answering. It was torn apart by war, much like what you're trying to prevent here. I lost family, friends. I decided that was enough. I needed a place where my skills could foster connections rather than conflicts. John listened intently, realizing the depth of their shared experiences. I understand that more than you might think. I too have seen too much war. It's what drives me to ensure peace here. Their conversation deepened, with Ilaria sharing more about her past, her once promising career in diplomacy among her own people, derailed by tragedy. John shared his own losses and the personal cost of being a military man turned diplomat. The bar slowly emptied, leaving them in a quiet bubble. It seems we're more alike than different, Ilaria, John remarked softly. Both seeking redemption of sorts. Perhaps that's why this uneasy alliance feels right, Ilaria admitted. But tell me, how will you maneuver the upcoming council meeting? The Vorar group will be watching closely. John outlined his plan, detailing the intricate negotiations and his strategies to isolate the warmongers. Ilaria listened, offering insights and suggesting subtle ways to disarm his opponents diplomatically. As the night drew to a close, a plan was forming, with each understanding the stakes involved. Ilaria, your help has been invaluable. I'm not sure how I would navigate this without you. Ilaria smiled, her eyes reflecting a mix of warmth and sadness. Just remember, John, in diplomacy as in life, it's the relationships that matter. Build them strong, and they'll stand when you need them most. John nodded in agreement, feeling a profound respect for the blue-skinned bartender who had become his confidant. As he left the bar that evening, he realized that their alliance might have started as a strategic necessity, but it was growing into something much more significant, A true partnership that might just change the course of history. The dimly lit streets of Xylara's capital shimmered under the alien night sky as Captain John Richards made his way to the galactic nexus for another critical meeting with Ilaria. Recent intelligence suggested that tonight could be pivotal in their efforts to thwart the Vorar group's clandestine plans. As he pushed through the bar's entrance, the familiar hum of interspecies conversations filled the air, but his focus was sharp. The weight of impending confrontation hung heavily on him. Ilaria spotted him immediately, her face taut with concern. "John, you look like you've seen a ghost," she remarked quietly as he approached the bar. "Might as well have," John replied gravely. "I've got news. There's a plot to disrupt the peace talks tomorrow. A bomb, Ilaria. They plan to plant it here, in the bar." The color drained from Ilaria's face. "Here? Why here?" "It's symbolic," John explained, scanning the room. "Your bar represents a neutral ground, a place where all species can mingle. Destroying it would send a clear message against peace." "We can't let that happen," Ilaria stated firmly, her shock quickly shifting to resolve. "What do you need from me?" "I need to know if anyone unusual has been snooping around, maybe new faces or regulars behaving differently," John said, his eyes darting across the room. Ilaria thought for a moment, then nodded. "There was one, a Korvaxian. Kept to himself mostly, but asked a lot of questions about the bar's layout and peak hours. Said he was a writer, researching a piece on cosmopolitan hubs." "That fits the profile. Can you point him out?" "He left an hour ago, but I can show you the surveillance footage," she offered, leading John to a small office behind the bar. They quickly reviewed the tapes, identifying the suspect. John took snapshots with his device and sent them to his team. "All right, I'll alert my security team to track him down. We need to find that bomb before it's too late," John said, his voice urgent. Ilaria nodded, her expression somber. "What about the bar? Should I evacuate?" "No, that might tip them off. Act normal. I'll have my team discreetly sweep the area," John decided, his mind racing through scenarios. As Ilaria returned to the bar, John coordinated with his security team, arranging for them to discreetly enter the bar as patrons and search for the device. Tension mounted as each minute passed, the bar's lively atmosphere starkly contrasting with the dire situation unfolding silently. Finally, a call came through on John's communicator. "Captain, we found the device. It's in a ventilation shaft above the back hallway. Disarming now." Relief flooded John as he watched his team work through the surveillance feed in Ilaria's office. The bomb was successfully neutralized, a crisis averted without any of the patrons aware of the danger that had loomed over them. Once the all-clear was given, John joined Ilaria at the bar again, his relief palpable. "It's over. The bomb's been disarmed." Ilaria let out a deep breath, her relief mixing with a newfound worry. "What now, John? If they're willing to go this far, what's to stop them from trying again?" "We increase security and stay vigilant, and we move forward with the peace talks as planned. Showing fear is exactly what they want," John reassured her, his resolve hardened. Ilaria nodded, a determined look in her eyes. "Then let's show them that peace isn't so easily disrupted." The night ended with the bar returning to its usual rhythm, but both John and Ilaria knew that the road ahead would be fraught with more challenges. They had won tonight's battle, but the war for peace was far from over. As John left the bar that night, his steps were heavy but steady, the weight of leadership ever present but now slightly alleviated by the partnership that had saved countless lives. After thwarting the bombing, the atmosphere at the galactic nexus was charged with a quiet tension. Captain John Richards and Ilaria, now more than just allies but partners in this precarious dance of espionage, were alert to every shadow and whisper. The morning after the bomb scare, John arrived early, finding Ilaria already behind the bar, a look of grim determination set on her features. "Good morning, Ilaria," John greeted, noting the undercurrent of anxiety in her posture. "Any word on our Korvaxian friend?" Ilaria shook her head. "Nothing yet, but I've alerted the staff to be extra vigilant. If he, or anyone from his group, shows up again, we'll know immediately." John nodded, pulling up a chair. "We need to get ahead of them, not just react. Have you heard anything else about the Vorar group's movements?" "Only rumors," Ilaria replied, her voice low. "They're spooked but not deterred. They're meeting tonight, in the industrial sector, a less frequented place, shielded from prying eyes." "That's our next stop then," John decided, his mind racing with plans. "We need to find out what they're plotting now." Ilaria hesitated, her gaze meeting John's. "It's dangerous, John. This isn't just snooping around anymore. If they catch us..." We won't let that happen, John assured her, his tone firm. I'll have backup nearby, just in case. That night, under the cover of darkness, John and Ilaria made their way to the industrial sector of Xylara. The area was a maze of warehouses and dimly lit factories, the perfect place for clandestine meetings. They found a secluded spot near the suspected location of the meeting, hiding behind the rusted remains of an old freight container. Using specialized equipment, John attempted to tap into the meeting, but the Varar group had secured their communications well. Frustrated, he turned to Ilaria. We need to get closer. Can you handle this? Ilaria nodded, her face set in a mask of resolve. Let's do it. They crept closer, dodging patrols and surveillance cameras, until they were close enough to hear voices. Hiding behind a stack of metal crates, they listened as the members of the Varar group laid out their next move, a series of strategic strikes designed to disrupt the peace talks and blame the humans. We need to record this, John whispered, handing Ilaria a compact recording device. This evidence could discredit them completely. Ilaria managed to place the device under a nearby table, skillfully maneuvering without drawing attention. They waited, breath held, as the meeting continued. Once the meeting adjourned, they retrieved the device and made a swift exit, dodging a roaming patrol by mere seconds. Back in the safety of the Galactic Nexus, John and Ilaria reviewed the recordings. The evidence was damning, detailing not just plans for future attacks, but also connections to influential Xylarians who opposed peace. We've got them, John said, relief washing over him. With this, we can expose the Varar group and their backers. It's over. Ilaria smiled, though the shadows under her eyes spoke of the weight she carried. It's a big win, John, but the fight for peace is never really over, is it? No, John admitted, his voice tinged with weariness. But tonight we celebrate our victory. Tomorrow we secure the future. As the sun rose over Xylara, casting light on the city's towering structures, John and Ilaria knew their actions last night had changed the course of the peace talks. They had faced danger together and prevailed, their unlikely partnership proving to be a formidable force. But as they prepared for the next phase, both knew that the path to peace was long and fraught with obstacles. Yet, with each other's support, they felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. With the damning evidence in hand, Captain John Richards and Ilaria knew that exposing the Varar group was critical, but it needed to be handled with precision. The morning was crisp as John walked into the Galactic Nexus, finding Ilaria reviewing the recordings with a focused intensity. Morning, Ilaria, John greeted, observing her deep concentration. Ilaria looked up, her expression solemn. Good morning, John. I've gone through the recordings again. Everything we need is right here. When do we present this to the Council? Today, John replied firmly. The peace talks resume this afternoon. We need to act before then. The plan was straightforward, yet risky. They would present the recordings to the Xylarian Council, exposing not just the Varar group's sabotage plans, but also their connections to high-ranking officials who opposed the peace initiative. However, presenting the evidence to the Council was not without dangers, as the Varar group's influence was extensive, and they wouldn't go down without a fight. As they prepared to leave for the Council chamber, John reassured Ilaria, We've got a solid case, and with my team in place, we'll be safe. Ilaria nodded, her determination clear. Let's end this, John. The council chamber was a vast dome, its walls adorned with murals depicting Xylara's rich history. As they entered, the weight of the moment settled over them. The chamber was already filling with council members and diplomats, the air thick with anticipation. John and Ilaria took their seats near the front, the recording device discreetly in John's possession. The session began with routine matters, but soon it was their turn to present. John stood, his heart pounding as he addressed the council. Honorable members of the council, we come before you today to reveal a threat to our peace efforts, John began, his voice steady despite the nervous energy coursing through him. He proceeded to outline the Varar group's plans, playing snippets of the recordings. The chamber erupted in murmurs as the gravity of the accusations sank in. Faces of shock and disbelief turned towards them, and the atmosphere grew tense. Suddenly, a group of armed Varar operatives burst into the chamber, their leader shouting, "This is a fabrication! Humans lie to weaken us!" Chaos ensued. The council members scrambled for cover as John and his security team moved to intercept the attackers. Ilaria, though unarmed, stood her ground, her eyes scanning for any additional threats. A brief but intense firefight broke out. John's training took over as he maneuvered to protect Ilaria and the council members. His team efficiently neutralized the threat, disarming the Vorar operatives and securing the chamber. In the aftermath, with the Vorar operatives detained, John continued, "This violence proves our point. These are the lengths they will go to prevent peace." The head of the council, an elder Zalarian, stood, his voice echoing in the now silent chamber. "We have seen enough. Captain Richards, Miss Ilaria, your bravery and commitment to peace are evident. We will take immediate action against the Vorar group and their conspirators." Relief washed over John and Ilaria as the council members voted overwhelmingly in favor of continuing the peace talks, using the evidence to purge the council of the Vorar influence. As they left the chamber, John turned to Ilaria. "We did it. It's over." Ilaria smiled, a mix of fatigue and satisfaction in her eyes. "Yes, we did. Thanks to you, John." "No," John shook his head. "Thanks to us. We did this together." The day ended with the promise of a new beginning. The peace talks would proceed, fortified by the truth they had unveiled. John and Ilaria knew that the road ahead would still be fraught with challenges, but they had taken a significant step toward a lasting peace, their partnership stronger than ever. The aftermath of the confrontation in the council chamber resonated deeply across Xylara. The swift action taken by the council to remove and arrest members of the Vorar group and their collaborators had sent shockwaves through the political landscape. As peace talks resumed with renewed vigor and a focus on transparency, Captain John Richards felt a cautious optimism. He met Ilaria at the Galactic Nexus, which had become their unofficial headquarters throughout this ordeal. The bar was quiet today, a soft murmur of conversations filling the space as diverse patrons cautiously celebrated the political shifts. "Ilaria," John greeted, noting the subtle changes in her demeanor, a mix of relief and contemplation. "John," she replied with a smile. "Sit, please. I was just thinking about all that has transpired." As they sat, John looked around at the patrons, seeing a reflection of the broader galaxy's diversity and complexities. "We've been through quite a journey, haven't we?" he remarked. "We have," Ilaria agreed. "And while I'm relieved at the outcome, I can't help but think about the future. What happens now?" John considered her words, his gaze thoughtful. "Now, we build. The Council is establishing new protocols to ensure more inclusive and transparent governance. And your role in all this, your insights and courage, they've been instrumental. You've more than just served drinks, you've served the cause of peace." Ilaria laughed softly. "I suppose I have, but I'll stick to bartending, though maybe with a bit more political awareness this time." John nodded, appreciating her choice. "And I'll be returning to Earth soon. My report should help shape how we engage with alien civilizations moving forward. More understanding, less conflict." Ilaria's expression softened. "Your departure will be a significant change. This bar, these talks, I've grown used to them. And I've grown used to having a reliable ally and friend here," John said, the weight of his imminent departure settling in. "Ilaria, you've changed my view on many things. The importance of listening, of truly seeing people, or aliens, as individuals with their own stories and struggles." Ilaria smiled, touched by his words. "And you've shown me that not all humans are warmongers. Some are peacemakers, genuine in their desire to see a better universe." As they continued talking, the bar began to fill with more patrons, a sense of normalcy returning. They discussed John's final days on Xylara and the transition he hoped to see. Finally, it was time to say goodbye. John stood, offering his hand to Ilaria, who took it with a firm grip. "Thank you, Ilaria, for everything." "Safe travels, John. And remember, the galaxy isn't always as dark as it seems," Ilaria replied, her voice steady but filled with emotion. John nodded, his heart heavy but hopeful. "I'll remember that. And who knows, I might find my way back here someday." With a final look around the now bustling bar, John left the Galactic Nexus. As he walked through the streets of Xylara's capital, he reflected on the changes he had witnessed and the peace that seemed more tangible than ever. The experience had reshaped his approach to diplomacy. More inclusive, more compassionate, more hopeful. As John boarded his spacecraft to return to Earth, he carried with him not just the success of his mission, but the profound personal transformations he had undergone. The peace talks on Xylara would continue, nurtured by the seeds of understanding and trust he and Ilaria had sown. In the vast, starlit expanse of space, John felt a deep connection to the universe and its myriad possibilities for peace and unity.